Developing right now on Morning News Now, an intensified fight across the Middle East 4 days into the war with Iran. Overnight explosions rocking Tehran and Lebanon's capital city, Beirut, where Israel says its troops are now on the ground to seize more territory in its campaign against Hezbollah. In Saudi Arabia's capital, the U.S. embassy attacked by Iranian drones in the latest wave of retaliatory strikes. So far, at least 6 American service members have died in action and at least 10 people killed in Israel. While in Iran, humanitarian officials say nearly 800 people have died. Here at home, a war of words in Washington over President Trump's decision to enter the conflict.
We didn't start this war, but under President Trump, we are finishing it.
Donald Trump has just launched America into a full-scale conflict against one of our most fervent adversaries without a plan, without an end game, and without authorization for Congress.
There absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us.
Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us this Tuesday. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. This is day 4 of the war with Iran with no end in sight, so let's jump right into it with our team tracking the very latest for us from across the Middle East and here at home. We're going to begin with NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley and reporter Matt Bodner with the very latest. Good morning to both of you. Matt Bradley, let's start with you. Can you tell us just about where you are at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm here right now in one of 2 nerve centers in Israel for what's called Magen David Adom, which is the ambulance service, the rescue and emergency service for all of Israel. I got to tell you guys, a lot of this service has been built with American donations. So what we're seeing here around me is a state-of-the-art dispatch center. It looks like what you might see in America at a 911 calling center, except that this place has heavy blast doors. We're about 100 feet underground right now. You can see there's ventilators here. This place can survive just about anything that anybody throws at it. And again, when I say state of the art, I'm meaning that actually, when there's an emergency, folks here don't even really have to pick up the phone and call the ambulance. The computer system handles it for them. And it's also able to be part of this alert system that has kept so many Israelis safe. It's places like this one that explain why, despite the fact that we have seen quite a few deaths over the past few days in Israel, why the casualty numbers here are so incredibly low compared to what we're seeing elsewhere.
Matt Bradley, let's also talk about what's going on the ground in the region. Iran stepped up its retaliatory strikes on American targets in the Middle East overnight. Tell us what we know about what sites were hit.
Yeah, well, this is all over the Gulf states, which I don't have to tell you are seen as something of a refuge in the Middle East. Bahrain, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, all of the Saudi Arabia. Actually, they just said that there were drones that were fired at the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh. So we're seeing a real metastasizing of this conflict, which is exactly what people were warning about if Iran got attacked. Now, whether or not this sustains, whether or not this continues, we don't really know. It's a big open question as to just how many munitions the Iranians still have left and what they're still able to throw at American targets throughout the region. The fact is that we know from the Israelis that they now enjoy almost complete air superiority over Iran. That's what they did last June when they were able to essentially fire at will, untouched by Iranian air defenses. Whether or not that means we're going to see an end to incoming missiles, well, sitting in this room right now, we've already had 2 missile alerts in just the past couple of hours. So it looks like the Iranians aren't done yet.
Matt Bodner, let's bring you into this conversation for more on what's going on now inside Iran. The Israeli military said it's launching attacks on military targets in Tehran. Many of these, though, we're learning are near residential neighborhoods. So what are we hearing from the ground about how Iranian residents are faring in this conflict? Do we know how many people in Iran have died?
Thanks, Joe. Well, as ever with Iran, it can be difficult to build a complete picture from abroad of what's going on within the country, and that's on the best of days. That said, we have been hearing from our bureau in Tehran about what's happening on the ground, and in particular, how the public is reacting to it. Accounts of that first day of the U.S. bombing campaign, they paint a chaotic and harrowing picture for civilians, in particular, the city covered in smoke, residents sitting in their homes at night, wondering where the next round of strikes will fall. As you mentioned, there are a lot of targets in the city. Among them are police stations, and a lot of them are located close to residential buildings. So we're hearing reports of civilians sitting in their homes, shaken by closely falling munitions. And so there's a lot of concern about that. We're also hearing yesterday that the city's roads were jammed with traffic. People were trying to flee to friends, to family in regions outside of Tehran. Also hearing that at least one hospital in the northwest of the city, the wards were filled with injured civilians as well as members of the militias. So today we are hearing that things are more quiet. The public is expressing mixed emotions, however, about what comes next. They're mostly concerned now about who will lead the country. Will the country even survive as a coherent whole, or is there something much darker waiting on the other side of this than the Ayatollah?
That question.
The economy. Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry, Matt Bodner. Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. Also, the economy is a major factor here. Already, things are more expensive. Things will continue to get more expensive, and if this goes on for too long, we're hearing people will start to struggle economically, spending their savings.
Yeah, and which was already an issue and part of those major protests that we saw months back. Matt Bodner, you bring up this question of who will lead the country. That is something that falls to what's called the Assembly of Experts in Iran. They choose the supreme leader's successor. Tell us about this group. Who's part of this assembly? Who makes that up? And do we know where they stand in the process of choosing a new supreme leader this morning?
So we're waiting now for this assembly to convene. Basically, it's a large group of what they call experts. It's basically religious clerics. And in terms of like a leadership succession battle or what that might look like, obviously the initial strike that killed the Ayatollah also hit a significant chunk of the regime's senior leadership. There are a few figures to keep an eye on. One is Aliza Reza Arafi. He was appointed on Sunday to lead a temporary transitional council, and that's where this council of experts comes in. The Iranian constitution mandates that this group meets. It's about an 88-member panel to choose a new supreme leader. The constitution says that this must happen as quickly as possible. What that means in practice will be anyone's guess. I do think it's worth pointing out there that there is a deterrent to the Iranians moving too quickly on appointing, or at least officially, publicly, a new supreme leader. And that would be to stop the United States from potentially immediately targeting that replacement. So it still could be some time.
Matt Bradley, one more question for you. The State Department, we know, has issued now evacuation orders for U.S. citizens in more than a dozen countries. Just yesterday, we spoke with a young man, an American, who was flying out of Doha. The war starts. His plane turns around, lands in Doha. He's stuck there. He had no clue how he's getting out. So what areas are most at risk, and what are the options for evacuation?
Yeah, it's a great question. But the fact is that here in Israel, we really are most at risk. But from statistics that I believe that I've been reading, the Gulf countries are getting a huge amount of incoming from Iran. I would say that the safest place you are in the Middle East isn't going to be dependent on where you actually are, but the means of protection that is available. Here in Israel, ever since the 1980s, almost every building has been required to have a bomb shelter built inside of it. And that is the standard that we're seeing in the room that I'm in right now. State-of-the-art medical emergency and early warning systems make a huge difference in terms of saving lives. And that's one of the reasons, again, why we're seeing so few casualties in Israel, despite the fact that they're getting a huge amount of the Iranian anger.
All right. Matt Bradley, Matt Bodner, thank you both for kicking us off this hour. We appreciate it.
Well, for more perspective on where this conflict is headed, let's bring in retired Colonel Peter Mansour, who was the executive officer for General David Petraeus during the Iraq War. Good morning. Thank you very much for being with us and sharing your perspective with us. We appreciate it. In this press conference yesterday that we carried here on our show, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth had this to say about the possible duration of this war. We'll talk in a moment.
This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. Our generation knows better, and so does this president. This operation is a clear, devastating, decisive mission. Destroy the missile threat, destroy the Navy, no nukes.
So yesterday, though, after that, the president gave this timeline of 4 to 5 weeks for the potential of this active conflict. Do you think that timeline is realistic? And what do you make of Hegseth's remarks, saying it won't be endless, and also kind of giving a list of some stated goals there?
So the timeline might be according to the plan we have and the target list we want to service, and which may take 4 to 6 weeks to get through all those targets. But, when this conflict ends isn't up to us. It's up to the Iranians. And if they continue to fight after those 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to have to continue to defend our facilities in the Middle East. The other nations are going to have to defend their urban areas. And we're going to have to continue to bomb Iran in order to degrade their ability to launch missiles and drones throughout the Middle East. So it's not up to us. They have unleashed, the Trump administration has unleashed a war over which they really have no control.
The U.S. said its military struck thousands of targets in Iran on the first day of the war. We're now in day 4. Iran continues to retaliate. We are seeing these missile and drone attacks all across the region. How much do you think Iran's military was weakened by those initial strikes? And do you think Iran has the firepower to keep up, especially if this does stretch into 4 or 5 weeks, even longer?
Well, there's no doubt that the Iranian military forces have been severely weakened. Israel and the United States own the skies over Iran, which means we can use platforms like the B-1 bomber, which is not stealthy, to hit targets, so that the number of bombs we can drop is now increased. And they're going after these targets like missile depots and drone storage facilities. But Iran is not launching massive waves. They're going to continue to try to drag this conflict out in time in order to weaken the will of the United States and Israel to prosecute it. So they are holding back, I'm sure, some of their munitions in order to be able to lengthen this conflict out.
Colonel, the State Department has told U.S. citizens to leave several countries in the region. Many embassies have closed. But as Joe just mentioned a moment ago, we know a lot of people are stuck in places that they were on vacation, or even yesterday we spoke with somebody who just happened to have a connecting flight in the region. What worries you when it comes to Iran's retaliation against Americans that are stuck abroad? And then I guess also the question is retaliation here at home.
Well, abroad, the Americans just need to hunker down. They need to find the safest place they can. And, if that's an air raid shelter, that's great, a basement. Maybe get out into the countryside if there are facilities there to house them where they're not as much of a target. I think eventually the American government is going to have to charter planes to go in, even in the current situation, and get Americans out of there. But I don't think that they've thought of that yet. Here at home, there's definitely a possibility of a terrorist threat. There was already one incident, potentially terrorist related, in Austin, Texas. And so, Americans just need to go about and be vigilant in their daily lives. But we've grown inured to terrorism in the United States, unfortunately, and we're pretty good at tracking down domestic terrorists.
And we'll talk more about that situation in Austin in just a moment. Colonel, one more quick question for you. We heard yesterday President Trump not ruling out boots on the ground, implying there would be what he called a big wave attack by the U.S. What do you think that wave could look like?
He may be referring to the fact that now that we have complete air superiority over Iran, we can use far more platforms to attack. And they may be ginning up a larger wave of aircraft to go in and bomb various targets in Iran. That's the only thing I can think of necessarily that he might be referring to.
Colonel Peter Mansour, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
President Trump finally publicly addressed the situation in Iran yesterday, his first comment since the strikes began on Saturday, and he spoke out during a Medal of Honor ceremony at the White House. Other than his words yesterday and 2 brief videos over the weekend, the president has yet to hold a real press conference since the war with Iran started. That's left many questions unanswered. NBC News political reporter Megan Leibowitz joins us now with more on that from Washington. Megan, good morning. The president then identified 4 key objectives for the U.S. military operation in Iran yesterday. Tell us what he said.
Yeah, so the president, as you mentioned, made these remarks during a Medal of Honor ceremony yesterday, laying out the objectives for the U.S. military to achieve during the course of this war. He also laid out a potential timeline, saying that he had expected that this operation could take potentially 4 to 5 weeks, though he said that whatever the time is, it's okay. Now, I want you to take a listen to how he talked about those objectives that he wants the military to achieve. Take a listen.
Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their Navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon.
Now, that fourth objective as well, he had said, was to ensure that Iran's government is not able to arm, fund, or direct terrorists. That's referring to Iran's proxy forces in the region, guys.
Objectives are one thing, Megan, but have we heard any more about the reasoning, the justification for this war from the Trump administration? It feels like the explanation has evolved a little bit. We're hearing different sort of reasons for doing so. What do we know at this point?
Yeah, so President Trump laid this out a bit yesterday as well. He was saying that the U.S. carried out this operation to eliminate what he referred to as grave threats that the regime posed to America. He pointed to Iran's growing ballistic missile program and also argued that Iran had ignored warnings about pursuing a nuclear program as well. Now, we also heard yesterday from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who was on the Hill yesterday to brief lawmakers. He also gave an explanation as well about why the U.S. took part in this operation, saying that the U.S. knew that Israel was going to take action against Iran, and basically making the argument that if the U.S. waited and did not act preemptively, then the U.S. ultimately would have suffered higher casualties when Iran responded to Israel. Now, that explanation is getting some pushback from Democrats on the Hill, and that's something that we're going to be continuing to monitor today.
Yeah, let's listen, because Secretary Rubio, he spoke with reporters about this yesterday. Let's listen to that.
There absolutely was an imminent threat. The hardest hits are yet to come from the U.S. military. The next phase will be even more punishing on Iran than it is right now.
So Megan, how's Congress responding to all of this, especially with some of the shifting explanations for this?
Yeah, so unsurprisingly, this is mostly falling along party lines here, with Democrats criticizing the administration, calling this a war of choice and questioning the administration's objectives and strategy to ultimately achieve those objectives, while Republicans are still largely in line with how the administration is handling this. We heard from some lawmakers yesterday after that briefing from top administration officials, including Secretary Rubio. We heard from Democratic Senator Mark Warner, who argued that there was no imminent threat to the U.S. He said that there was a threat to Israel, and he argued that if the U.S. equates a threat to Israel as the equivalent of an imminent threat to the U.S., then we are in uncharted territory, is what he said. Now, we also heard from House Speaker Mike Johnson, who argued that the administration was justified in all of this. Lawmakers are going to get a classified briefing today as well, guys.
Megan, are lawmakers still planning to vote on the War Powers resolution?
Yeah, we are expecting lawmakers to vote on that sometime this week. We don't know exactly when that could potentially take place here, guys, but that too mostly falling along party lines, with most Democrats arguing and pushing for this vote. A couple of Republicans as well. That vote, if it passed, would ultimately prevent President Trump from taking further military action in Iran without first getting congressional approval, guys. Now, it's going to be perhaps difficult for Democrats and those that group of Republicans who are joining with them to get those necessary votes, because Republicans control the House and the Senate, guys. So a bit of an uphill battle for them, but we're going to watch how this all plays out.
All right, Megan Leibowitz covering the political reaction from Washington. Megan, thank you so much.
Let's get more analysis with Elise Labott. She's a global affairs journalist and the author of Cosmopolitics on Substack. Elise, good morning. Always great to have you with us. I want to start by playing more sound from Secretary of State Marco Rubio yesterday, again, when he's talking about why the U.S. acted now to attack Iran alongside Israel. Let's listen.
It was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond against the United States. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed.
So it sort of sounds like what Rubio's essentially saying is the imminent threat of an Iranian attack was based on this prior intelligence knowledge that Israel was going to attack Iran first. If we focus on just this particular reasoning for this, does it sound like that means that Israel forced America's hand here?
Yeah, I think Israel did force America's hand. Listen, I mean, the truth of the matter is, as we know, nobody's kind of crying for the supreme leader or for this Iranian regime. But the idea that this was planned out, the idea that the administration would think of the consequences after that, this doesn't really suggest that. And certainly when we're talking about the day after, those consequences haven't been fully thought out. But, you know, this was not clearly, it wasn't an imminent threat. And the messaging, as you know, has been changing. I think the administration's kind of trying to throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. First, it was the nuclear program, then it was the missile program, that now it's, you know, an imminent threat against attacks against Americans. There was no imminent threat. That said, at some point, some U.S. president was going to undertake, you know, getting rid of this Iranian regime. It's been a threat for, you know, about half of a century. And so President Trump thought he was going to be the one to do that. But Israel has been gunning for Iran for years. After October 7th, it kind of changed the whole battlefield. Israel was always going to go this route, and the Americans decided to go with them.
The president of the White House did offer more information yesterday, trying to clarify what some of the objectives in Iran are. We'll repeat some of them. We mentioned them earlier: degrading Iran's missile capabilities, destroying Iran's navy, ensuring Iran can never get that nuclear weapon, and then trying to contain its proxy forces throughout the region. All in 4 to 5 weeks. Is that realistic?
Well, I think from speaking with officials in the region, I think the main thing right now is to get rid of those missile launchers, because the missile launchers are the ones that are able to lob these missiles and against all of the U.S. and Gulf interests. So I think that's the main thing. I think you're going to see that over the next, certainly over the next week. The nuclear program, you know, we'll have to see. I think it's not only getting rid of the nuclear, you know, missiles and all of the underground sites. It's also, you have to get rid of the scientists. You have to get rid of the enriched uranium. I don't think, you know, all of the objectives probably won't be taken care of in 1 week. I think we're going to be in this for a while.
The other part of this is, of course, what comes next for Iran. We've heard the president call on Iranians to rise up and take control. What do you think happens here, and how dangerous could it get?
Well, it's not so easy for Iranians to just take to the streets. I mean, the Iranian system wasn't a one-man dictator. So now that the supreme leader is dead, that just doesn't make it easier. You know, the systems are still in place. The Iranian military, the Basij, the militias that are still that are kind of domestic and the ones that have been cracking down on the people, they're still there. And the question is, President Trump said this isn't regime change in terms of a U.S. objective, but is calling on the Iranians. They see the U.S. reasoning changing all the time. And I think the Iranians are afraid if they go into the streets and the Iranian military goes after them, is the administration going to be after them? And also, guys, the leadership is very leaderless. It doesn't really have that many figures that can kind of rally everybody together. There are some kind of symbolic figures like the son of the former Shah who might be able to do this. But again, the opposition doesn't have the weapons to go after the Iranian military. So it's a lot to ask the Iranian people to take it on faith that the U.S. will be there for them.
All right. Elise Labott, we appreciate your expertise here. Thank you for joining us this morning. Let's get to the weather now. Winter weather, it's not gone just yet. Some snow, some freezing rain expected in the Northeast today, but I know there's hope on the horizon, right, Angie?
Everybody is waiting for that first spring-like day, aren't we, Joe? Yes, there is some hope on the horizon, but first we got to get through maybe this kind of last gasp of winter. And you're seeing it on your commute today if you live in the Northeast. Notice there's a bit of rain, yes, and for most of the coastal areas, that's all it's going to be. But we've got the mix of some freezing rain, some snowflakes flying, and that goes all the way back towards the Great Lakes. We're going to see this impacting folks across this region at least through the day today. You can see we've got plenty of winter alerts, up to 34 million people right now across that region under those alerts. Here's how it plays out. You can see some of that snow the farther north you go. But again, places like New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. will see some icy travel for the interior Northeast. But closer to the coast, it's going to be mostly in the form of rain that you see this precipitation. That, of course, helps to melt some of that snow that is still on the ground in places from from Boston to Philadelphia. So that's your good news with that. It will, though, be a little difficult on that drive throughout the day today. Though notice we could see up to 1/10 of an inch of some ice accumulation across those same areas. And then farther to the north is where you'll see that more, multiple inches coming down snowfall. That's going to be places like Vermont into Maine. 3 to 4 inches will be on the higher end. Then as we get into tomorrow, we'll see some of these kind of rain showers continuing across the Midwest. We'll get some of that large hail and those damaging winds possible. And we have the potential to see some severe weather. And here's where it's centered. Notice Dallas Metro right in the center of that. We'll have all of our threats on the table. The wind, the hail, the tornadoes. They'll be brief when it comes to the tornadoes, maybe 1 or 2, but still the potential is there with the ingredients of the atmosphere. And then as we get into your Thursday, that rain will work up into the Great Lakes, works into the Northeast, and we'll once again see the potential for severe risk for Texas and Oklahoma. You guessed it, all of those threats once again on the table, stretching from San Angelo up into portions of Kansas. We've got Amarillo in there as well. So that'll be something that we'll have to watch over the next couple of days, Joe. We transition from snow in some spots to record warmth for most of the rest of the country, and we've got some severe weather on the table. So you're keeping me busy.
A little bit of everything. All right. Thanks, Angie. Appreciate it. Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, it's decision day for parts of America. Midterm primaries kicking off this morning across 3 states. We're going to break down some of the high-stakes races on the ballots. Up first after the break, under oath and on tape, our first look at the depositions of former President Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton testifying in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. We'll be right back. We're back with the newly released videotape testimony from last week's deposition of former President Bill Clinton and former First Lady Hillary Clinton. This is part of the congressional investigation into the Jeffrey Epstein case. The former president and former Secretary of State were questioned at length about their past interactions with the late convicted sex offender and what they knew, if anything, about his criminal conduct. NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles reviewed the hours of testimony and has the latest.
The House Oversight Committee releasing all 9 hours of the depositions of Bill and Hillary Clinton as part of their investigation into Jeffrey Epstein.
Have you ever engaged in sexual activity with a person introduced to you by Jeffrey Epstein?
No.
Bill Clinton testifying he had no knowledge of Epstein's crimes, and he had no reason to believe that President Trump knew anything either.
The only conversation I had with President Trump about this was in the early 2000s. And I have no information that he did anything wrong.
Clinton pressed by both Republicans and Democrats about his repeated appearances in the Epstein files, including this photo of him in a hot tub with a woman.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Did you engage in any sexual activity with this person?
Both Clintons have denied any wrongdoing and have never been accused of any crimes related to Epstein. The former Secretary of State's deposition got off to a rocky start when she discovered Congresswoman Lauren Boebert took a picture of her and shared it with a conservative influencer.
I'm done with this. If you guys are doing that, I am done. You can hold me in contempt from now until the cows come home.
She denied ever meeting Epstein, at times growing visibly frustrated with the questioning.
I am so tired of answering that question. If you have one scintilla of evidence to the contrary, put it forward. I have never been on his island, period. I've never been in his homes, his offices, his anything.
Republicans asking her off-topic questions on issues like UFOs and even internet conspiracy theories. Ryan Nobles, NBC News.
The midterm election cycle officially kicks off in several states today. Voters will head to the polls for Senate primaries in Texas, Arkansas, and North Carolina. Now, the main purpose of these contests is to decide which candidates will make the ballot in November, but experts believe this is also a referendum on President Trump's second term. The very expensive and high-stakes Senate primaries in Texas are most certainly in the spotlight today. On the Republican side, incumbent John Cornyn is facing challenges from the right. His opponents, the state's conservative Attorney General Ken Paxton and Congressman Wesley Hunt. On the Democratic side, polling shows Representatives James Tallarico and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett are in a dead heat. Now, depending on today's outcome, it could set up that showdown in November, with Democrats hoping to win a statewide contest for the first time in Texas in more than 30 years. NBC News correspondent Ryan Chandler is in the Lone Star State with more. Ryan, good morning.
the energy here in Texas for these party primaries is higher than I've ever seen it. Look at this line just to get a picture with James Tallarico, the breakout star Democrat running against Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who we've also been following around Houston. On Tuesday, we're going to see the results of the most expensive party primaries in American history. They're the most competitive that I've ever seen it in decades in Texas, with high stakes. On the Democratic side, this is really a question of how Texas Democrats see their identity. You have the faithful seminarian in James Tallarico versus the firebrand breakout star Democrat in Congresswoman Crockett. On the Republican side, the stakes may be even higher. Texas is a red state with Republicans favored to win statewide elections for decades now. And you have John Cornyn, who has held elected office in Texas for more than 4 decades, facing the fight of his political life. We'll see if this could be his last year as a senator, if Texas Attorney General Ken Baxton comes out ahead. All indications there, though, point to a runoff in the Republican Party, but with so much energy in the Democratic Party, polls point to this race between Crockett and Tallarico essentially being a coin flip. We'll be following it all from Austin. Back to you.
All right, Ryan Chandler, thank you. And you can catch full coverage of tonight's primaries in Texas, Arkansas, and North Carolina starting at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on NBC News Now. Time now for some money headlines. Could your favorite streaming app soon become one? Paramount says it's coming. NBC News business and economy reporter Emily Lorsch is here with your Money Minute. Sounds good. Emily, good morning.
It does. Joe, good morning. It seems like streaming's next mega merger is just around the corner. Paramount Skydance is planning to combine Paramount Plus and HBO Max into one service after it officially takes over Warner Brothers Discovery. Together, the services would have more than 200 million subscribers. A combined Paramount and WBD would create a company worth about $77 billion, but it does still need regulatory and shareholder approval. Over in the App Store, uninstalls of ChatGPT's mobile app surged nearly 300% Saturday, according to the data analytics company Sensor Tower. This follows news of OpenAI's deal with the Pentagon to use its technology after negotiations between the government and rival AI company Anthropic collapsed. At the same time, Anthropic's Claude saw downloads jump nearly 90%. And it's not just Taco Tuesday today, it's also Pancake Tuesday. Well, that's at least at IHOP. The breakfast chain has made the first Tuesday of March its own National Pancake Day for people to get a free short stack at participating restaurants, and that's without even having to make a purchase. It's part of a campaign raising money for the nonprofit Feeding America to provide meals to local food banks. A great cause here, Joe, and this is only National Pancake Day here at IHOP. Other restaurants normally celebrate on September 26th.
Oh, there's dueling pancake days.
Exactly.
Quite the controversy there. All right, thank you.
For sure.
Really appreciate it. Coming up, continuing coverage of the war in Iran as the attacks from both sides intensify. Our Richard Engel joins us after the break. Also, a somber reminder of the horrors of war. More than 160 people, many of them children, killed in an airstrike on a school in Iran. More on what happened there next on Morning News Now. We're back with our top story. The United States and Israel intensifying their attacks on Iran this morning, pounding the capital, Tehran, and other cities. The Iranian Red Crescent, its equivalent to the Red Cross, says the number of people killed there has risen to 787. Iran continues to retaliate, hitting U.S. bases and countries across the region. The U.S. embassy in the Saudi Arabian capital, Riyadh, was hit by drones in an attack that the Saudis are blaming on Iran. All this as Israel expands its attacks on Lebanon, saying that it has seized territory in a new ground offensive that it says is aimed at fighting Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed militant group there. NBC News chief international correspondent Richard Engel now joins us from Israel with the latest. Richard, we know the Trump administration said yesterday the hardest hits are yet to come. Tell us just how intense has this latest round of strikes from the U.S. and Israel been, and what is the impact on Iran?
So let me just start by telling you where I am right now, because this war is all over the region. I am now in Petah Tikva, which is a small town outside of Tel Aviv. And just a few hours ago, there was an Iranian ballistic missile. It was intercepted by Israel, and pieces came crashing down. They destroyed this garage, caused considerable damage, breaking windows throughout this area. Nobody was killed, but Israelis are being killed in this conflict. As you mentioned, hundreds of Iranians as well, according to the Red Crescent, have been killed, at least 6 Americans so far. And now the State Department is effectively telling Americans to leave the entire Middle East, putting out this blanket warning listing 14 different countries, including Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Jordan, that people should, if they can, by commercial means, leave and stay out of the region. That is not as easy to do as it might sound, because the airspace across much of the Middle East is closed. U.S. embassies and consulates have either been attacked in some cases, like in Saudi Arabia, or they have also temporarily shut. So there is considerable confusion, considerable tension, as this is a regional war that shows no signs of slowing down. Just a short while ago, you mentioned, Israel announced that it took territory, took land inside Lebanon, as is now pursuing a ground offensive in Lebanon. So this is an unfolding war that is primarily directed at Iran, but which has engulfed the entire region.
Richard, you mentioned the drone attack on the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia. Anything else we're learning about that? And tell us more, just broadly, what we are seeing at these U.S. embassies all across the region.
So it seems clear that Iran is lashing out at U.S. bases in the Gulf, at American diplomatic facilities. Iranians have said quite openly they believe that official sites, diplomatic sites, military bases are legitimate targets. And Iranian officials say that they didn't start this war. They are defending themselves, and therefore they are attacking targets that they believe are a part of this war machine which is being directed against them. So many consulates now are disrupted. It would be for Americans or for other nationals living in the part of the world right now, it's probably best that they do not depend on the consulates. Don't rely on the embassy to try and evacuate you or find ways for you to exit the country. Here in Israel, for example, the embassy is not operating at full service. The consulate is not providing evacuation services. They are telling people, if they can, to make their way out of the country while commercial services are still available, whether it's flights or crossing land borders.
Let's talk more about just how quickly this is spreading, as you've mentioned. And the UN's refugee agency now saying about 30,000 displaced people in Lebanon have sought protection in shelters after we saw things expand there yesterday. What more can you tell us about what's going on in Lebanon and between Israel and Hezbollah?
So this is an old score. This is an open wound. Israel and Hezbollah have fought several wars before. Hezbollah is a large militia group. It is very well armed. It was much better armed before than it is right now. Hezbollah fought a war in 2006 against Israel, and Hezbollah, according to many analysts, came out ahead in that war and dealt a bloody nose to Israel. Then, after the October 7th attacks, which were led by Hamas, when Hamas militants came into this country and went on a killing and kidnapping spree, Hezbollah joined the fight, and Israel responded with devastating force. Israel killed the Hezbollah leader. It destroyed many Hezbollah strongholds in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah's main focus of power, main center of power, is South Beirut and southern Lebanon. But Hezbollah has apparently managed to reconstitute itself to a degree. And yesterday, Hezbollah fired a few rockets at Israel in solidarity with Iran, expressing its opposition to this war. And Israel once again responded by bringing the war to Lebanese territory, bringing the war to Hezbollah, attacking Hezbollah leaders, and with Israeli ground troops taking more territory inside Lebanon. Israeli forces had already occupied a small part of southern Lebanon. Now they have taken more territory.
Richard Engel reporting from Israel. Richard, as always, we appreciate your reporting. Thank you. We're going to take a closer look now at that strike on an elementary school in southern Iran. Iranian officials say more than 160 people were killed. Most of the victims were students at the school. NBC News international correspondent Molly Hunter is following this story and joins us with the latest. Good morning, Molly.
Joe, good morning to you. That's right. We have been digging into these strikes for the last couple of days. And this morning, we've now seen pictures from state TV of massive crowds in the main streets of Manab. It is the southern city where these strikes happened, where that school was. Thousands of people dressed in black for the funeral processions this morning. The coffins, and you can see them right there on your screen, stacked on this truck going through that main street wrapped in Iranian flags. But Joe, 4 days after this attack, we still don't know who's behind it. Take a look.
New video released by Iranian state media shows the grim work in Manab has already begun, digging tiny graves for some of the littlest victims of this 3-day-old war. Iranian officials say airstrikes hit an elementary school Saturday, killing more than 160 people, mostly children. This man showing the camera what looks like a notebook with children's drawings. This book is stained with the students' blood, he says. We can see school bags on the ground, a classroom destroyed. NBC News spoke with a mother on the phone who said her son Sohail was killed in the attack just 2 days before his 8th birthday. By the time we arrived, she said, the entire school had collapsed on top of the children. The school is called Shajare Taibeh. According to Iran's education ministry, it had 264 students, both girls and boys. It's also right next to a former Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps base. You can see it in this satellite image from 2011 on the same compound. But the mother we spoke with and a local official tell NBC News the base hasn't been active for 15 years. As recently as December 2025, you can see what looks like a schoolyard here full of people. Iran's foreign minister pointing the finger directly at America and Israel.
Now, Joe, earlier today, the UN Human Rights Office has urged accountability. Schools are protected spaces under international law. Now, we've asked the Israeli and American military specifically about the target, given the high civilian toll. The Israeli military has told NBC News, Joe, they were not aware of any operations in the area. And a spokesperson for U.S. Central Command told our colleagues in D.C., quote, we are aware of reports concerning civilian harm resulting from ongoing military operations. We take these reports seriously and are looking into them. Joe, we are going to keep pushing, keep digging here for answers. I think this is going to be turn out to be a very, very important set of events in this war.
All right, Molly, thank you so much. Coming up, new developments in that shooting at a bar in Austin. As we learn, a third victim has now died. What investigators are saying about the suspect killed by police and a possible motive. Next on Morning News Now. We're back with news out of Texas, where a third victim from the mass shooting at a bar in Austin has now died. Austin police identified the victim as 30-year-old Jorge Peterson. He died last night. Investigators are still trying to determine if the suspect, who was killed by police, had any ties to terrorism groups. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson has the latest.
Authorities are investigating the deadly rampage at an Austin beer garden as a potential act of terrorism. The gunman, police say, was a 53-year-old naturalized citizen from Senegal with a possible history of mental health issues. Multiple sources say he unleashed the attack wearing an Iranian flag shirt and a Property of Allah sweatshirt the day after Iran's supreme leader was killed by the U.S. and Israel.
We reached out to our federal partners to assist in this resource-intensive scene and to address concerns of potential terrorism.
Investigators are searching the suspect's home and sifting through this massive crime scene, searching for a motive and potential ties to terrorism.
This is a around-the-clock, 24-hour investigation.
While police work to determine if there's any connection between what happened here and the war in the Middle East, many are on high alert.
As long as this war is going on, make sure we all remain vigilant.
Priscilla Thompson, NBC News, Austin.
The events of the last few days in the Middle East and this tragic story out of Texas do raise questions about the potential terror threat posed by Iran here in the U.S. So for more, we're bringing in Colin Clark. He's the executive director of the Soufan Center, which is a nonprofit that provides research and analysis on global security issues. Colin, thank you for joining us. So we still don't know exactly what the motive was here, but we know they're beefing up security in Texas, also in major cities like L.A. and New York City, all out of an abundance of caution. How concerned should people be about an attack either by Iran or one of its proxies?
Yeah, well, we should always be concerned about the Iranian threat, about threats from Sunni jihadist groups. But I think that threat level is heightened now because of the outright conflict with Iran. This is existential for the regime. Khamenei is dead. Most of the senior leadership is dead. And so if there was ever a time for the Iranians to use these proxies as tripwires, now is the time.
Both the FBI and U.S. Department of Homeland Security say they're now on what they are calling war footing here at home because of the growing threat environment. And what is Iran's history when it comes to attempting attacks here on American soil?
Yeah, so Iran has a long history of using its proxies all around the world. It's launched attacks in Latin America, in Europe. There's been Hezbollah operatives that have been arrested on U.S. soil, casing targets in New York City. The Iranians have also tried to use criminal groups to reach out to them, to have them conduct actions on U.S. soil against dissidents and against others.
What about the folks who we call lone wolf sympathizers? So these are people who don't have ties to Iran, don't have direct ties to any of its proxies, but see this and feel the need to act. How great of a risk is that?
That's likely what Austin was. It's going to prove to be, I think, when more details come out. We call them homegrown violent extremists or lone wolves. We saw that in New Orleans several years ago, an individual inspired by the Islamic State. We're looking at a kind of witch's brew of militant groups right now, and we have to be vigilant that, law enforcement's got to be, I think, on high alert.
Last June, we know federal agencies went on high alert over concerns of retaliation from Iran after the U.S. bombed the military sites there. This is obviously much more extensive than that. Are we in the same threat environment we were in back then, or have things been stepped up even more because this is not just a one strike or a few strikes, it's something that's going to go on for weeks and weeks?
We're in a different threat scenario here because, again, this is existential for the regime. This is a regime change war to get rid of everybody that was part of the current regime, including the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Quds Force, all of the individuals connected to the supreme leader.
What's your just main message to people here in America who are seeing this, asking these same questions that we've been talking about here? They might be worried. What's the main message you have?
It's the simple message that we've had since 9/11, which is if you see something, say something, be vigilant. There's no reason to panic. We need to be sober about the threat, but we also can't be naive.
All right. Colin Clark, good to have you with us. Thanks so much for being here. Coming up, escalation in the Middle East impacting our economy, from soaring gas prices to the closure of a major shipping route. We're already seeing some of the effects of the war with Iran. So when we return, we'll have a look at the financial fallout and what it means for you. Morning News Now will be right back.
We end this hour with the economic fallout from the escalating war with Iran. Oil prices are surging after Iran said it was closing the Strait of Hormuz in retaliation for U.S. and Israeli strikes.
It is one of the world's main shipping routes and choke points for oil. About 20% of global oil passes through the strait. Now, gas prices are starting to tick up in the U.S., jumping more than 10 cents a gallon since last month.
Caleb Silver is here to break it all down. He's the editor-in-chief of Investopedia and the chief business editor for People Inc. Caleb, great to have you as always. What kind of impact could the closing of the strait have here on the global economy?
Yeah, it really depends on the duration and how long it remains closed. But Joe mentioned that 20% of global oil goes through there, about 20% of liquefied natural gas goes through there. So what are ships doing? They're going around Africa. That takes longer, obviously. But it's not just oil tankers that are doing that. Big cargo companies like Maersk are avoiding that region altogether. So they're taking longer to go around the Cape of Africa to get their goods to Asia or back over to here. That means supply chain gum up. That means higher prices.
Breaking it down, let's start with industries. What are the industries that could be affected most? How quickly would they see that impact?
Yeah, well, it's oil first, oil and natural gas first, and you're already seeing that impact. We've seen a slight impact on gas prices. AAA average somewhere around $3.10. It was $2.88 just a month ago. So if this continues on for a while, you see usually a 2-week lag between a rise in crude oil prices and what you feel at the pump, though it's happening faster now. Oil prices go up, gas prices go up faster than they go down after oil prices settle. So you have that. Then you have fertilizer. Then you have other minerals and materials that go through that shipping port, but also the entire supply chain. As I mentioned, the big shipping companies are now avoiding that region altogether, which means takes a week, sometimes 2 weeks longer to go around Africa to get to where they want to go.
Let's talk about some of the major pain points just for the consumer in their everyday life when they start to notice that things are a lot more expensive, like groceries and, of course, gas when you're just filling up at the gas pump. When could we see changes like that? How significant could they be?
You're already starting to see changes at the gas pump, but that'll bleed to higher prices for food. We're already paying higher prices for food because of tariffs. Now you add this into the mix, and we're probably going to pay higher prices for all imports coming either from Asia, Europe, or even those coming from South America that have to go the other way around. So that's going to feel the first impact. And then you're going to see just harder to get things after a while if this takes several weeks. And we heard last night from the Secretary of Defense, this could go on 4 to 5 weeks at least. So I think we can expect higher prices.
So let's talk about Wall Street. So yesterday things dropped initially, then we saw a little bit of a rebound. Talk about like what happened there, what futures are looking like today, and guess what the theories are. If this does go weeks and weeks or longer, what could happen when it comes to the stock market, your 401k, et cetera?
Yeah, usually you see a knee-jerk reaction and stocks sell off right after a major event. We saw that yesterday morning, and then markets rally back. This morning, markets look terrible. We could have another day of volatility like that, but I think the fact that we now know that this could at least be several weeks for this campaign, you could probably expect a lot of volatility in the stock market. This is seasonally not a great year, not a great time of year for the stock market. I would expect some pressure. I would expect some volatility until some resolution develops here.
Given that, what's your advice to people at home who are watching their accounts or watching their 401ks?
Yeah, no time to make a move right now because we've seen this before. After major geopolitical events, you see these knee-jerk reactions in the stock market. If you sell right away, you usually miss the recovery, and the recovery is where actually the compounding happens. So you don't want to sell out because of headline news. See how it develops. When we look back in history, we've seen a lot of these, but the market usually recovers and goes back up to the right after a little while.
Caleb Silver, as always, we appreciate you. Thank you for walking us through it.
That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now.
Top of the hour, let's get right to the latest out of the Middle East. Iran's military response intensifying this morning. The U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, struck by drones. Comes as Israel intensifies its push for territory in the region, now putting military boots on the ground in neighboring Lebanon. Well, in Iran, new reports claim nearly 800 people have been killed there in allied attacks on a nation with a future that grows more uncertain with each day. Back home, the Trump administration hitting the ground running, defending its decision to strike, and insisting that history will not repeat itself.
This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. As far as we need to go to advance American interests. But we're not dumb about it. You don't have to roll 200,000 people in there and stay for 20 years.
We've got team coverage from across the globe, including the largely party-line pushback from top lawmakers as the White House presses on. Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We are going to begin this hour with NBC News Chief International Correspondent Richard Engel, who is in a suburb outside of Tel Aviv, Israel, with the latest on the ground there. Richard, good morning.
I'm now in the town of Petah Tikva, which is a suburb of Tel Aviv, and a short while ago an intercepted Iranian ballistic missile, which was shot down by air defenses from Israel, came crashing into this home, destroying this garage, causing damage throughout the area. No one was killed here, but Israelis and Iranians have been killed in these ongoing attacks in this war that shows no signs of slowing down.
Israel and the U.S. this morning are tearing Iran's military and leadership to pieces, with new attacks overnight and this morning, rocking Tehran and other cities. As the Pentagon raised the death toll to at least 6 U.S. service members killed by an Iranian attack on a base in Kuwait, President Trump says the war could last 4 to 5 weeks or longer.
They said, oh, well, if the president wants to do it really quickly, after that he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this.
More American troops and jets are being deployed to join the fight.
The hardest hits are yet to come.
Still, huge crowds of Iranians flooded the streets for a mass funeral. Iran says more than 150 people were killed by a U.S. or Israeli attack on a girls' school this weekend. The U.S. military says it's investigating what happened. This is now an expanding regional war. In Lebanon this morning, Israel is dramatically intensifying the fight against the pro-Iranian militia Hezbollah.
The Israeli military says it's seizing more Lebanese territory after Hezbollah fired rockets into Israel, while Iran is fighting on multiple fronts. The U.S. Embassy in Riyadh was hit by drones and caught fire. The embassy in Amman, Jordan, also evacuated staff. The State Department issued a blanket warning advising Americans to evacuate by commercial means from 14 countries covering most of the Middle East. But the thousands of American government workers, visitors, and long-term residents in the region have few options, with most airports closed. And we're seeing more of what happened to those American pilots accidentally shot down by Kuwaiti air defense in friendly fire yesterday. The crews ejected and got to safety. Kuwaitis tried to help this American pilot.
You're fine? Really? You need something to help you? No problem, you're safe.
According to Iran's Red Crescent, around 800 people in Iran have been killed so far. The group didn't distinguish between soldiers and civilians.
All right, Richard, thank you.
We're joined now by NBC News military analyst Colonel Steve Warren. Colonel, good to have you here with us in person. Let's start with what we're seeing now with the embassy attack attempt in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Talk about that and just the strategy we're seeing by Iran of trying to go after some of the embassies throughout the Gulf region.
Yeah, it's clear, Joe, that the Iranians have really only one or two punches that they can throw. Number one is to try to pressure the local nationals, the countries, the Gulf countries, into pressuring us by making their lives hard. Number two, what we're seeing in this case is to attack Americans, right? To hurt Americans, and the idea that that will bring enough pressure onto the president to where he cries uncle. Right now, there hasn't been enough. Our defenses have been extraordinary. Our troops are so professional, and they're really locked in on defending these sites. And so far, so good.
That dovetails very well into my question, which is about Americans abroad and getting home. We know that the State Department urged Americans to leave the Middle East as soon as possible, providing that list. However, as Richard pointed out, I mean, most of these airports are closed. We had somebody on our show yesterday who has not been able to get out, though he would like to. How risky is it for Americans to even make the attempt to travel home right now? Let's say you're sheltering in a hotel somewhere and you've got to get to an airport. And what's your advice to them in this interim period while those airports are closed?
Yeah, this is difficult and very hard to navigate. I think the most important thing that anyone can do now is follow the rules and advice that the State Department issues. They're very professional. They understand what's happening. They have a very good full picture of what the threat levels are. And if the State Department says shelter in place and stay in your hotel, do exactly that.
This is all a reminder. The Middle East is complex, to put it mildly. This is not just the U.S. and Israel versus Iran. We're seeing Iran fire back on countries throughout the region. And now we're really seeing this expand to Lebanon and the battles between Israel and Hezbollah. What do you think, especially with Israel now putting boots on the ground there? What's the strategy there? How does that play into what's happening throughout the region?
For 20 years, as anyone has ever talked about the idea of attacking Iran, the first thing that anyone ever says, anyone in the know, always says it could turn into a regional conflict. Regional conflict is exactly what we're seeing now. So the Lebanese have attacked, they initiated, right? They rocketed Israel. And Israel has learned really since, the tragic events of July 7th years ago, not to take any chances. So the Israelis are pushing back in Lebanon very, very hard into southern Lebanon. They're going to continue to pressure Hezbollah, as they've done for the last several years. Keep in mind, the Israelis have largely dismantled Hezbollah initially. Now they're beginning to reconstitute. Hezbollah has significant stockpiles of short-range rockets, which is what they've employed in this case. And the Israelis are now going to try and push them back.
We learned that overnight the Israeli Defense Forces say that they wiped out Iran's leadership compound that's right in the heart of Tehran. You couple that with the damage to nuclear facilities that the President of the United States says occurred a few months ago, in addition to our Secretary of Defense saying that we do have this air superiority. How does all of that track for Iran? How long do you believe that they can keep this up with what we know about their ballistic missile capability and with the damage that they've sustained to this point?
So they've sustained, as you said, significant damage to their more long-range, or we would call them intermediate-range missiles. Long for them, I guess. They can range into Turkey and parts of southern Europe. Right? Those are being rapidly degraded for two reasons. One, because they're firing a lot of them, and two, because we're striking the ones that aren't fired. So that is good news. What's less good news is these Shahed drones, which have been a real killer on the battlefields in Ukraine. We're seeing the Iranians employ those now. They're shorter range. They don't do a ton of damage, about 200 pounds worth of explosives in one Shahed drone, but they're difficult for us to shoot down, and the Iranians have so many of them. They have tens of thousands of these. So this, in my view, is the threat that we have to keep an eye on. The long-range stuff, we're going to continue to degrade, but it's the short-range, close-in stuff that they can use in the Gulf nations that we have to keep an eye on.
Colonel, while we have you, there was that extraordinary video we saw again just now in Richard Engel's piece. It shows these U.S. fighter pilots hit by the friendly fire in Kuwait, ejecting, landing safely. They're okay. I think a lot of people see that, and it just amazes them, the skill and training that goes into being part of the U.S. military and flying these jets. What were your thoughts when you saw that? What's some of the messages you want people to understand when they see that?
Such dramatic footage. My heart was in my throat when I first saw that F-15, falling out of the sky. But then when we saw these troops, and there's been two sets of images, one where a young pilot is being approached by some Kuwaitis, and you can tell that she's nervous, she's not sure what's going to happen next, but she holds it together. I mean, that's an American hero right there, truly. She granted friendly fire, but it wasn't friendly to her. Right. And then everyone else, there's thousands and thousands of troops right now, sailors primarily afloat aboard these aircraft carriers and destroyers, thousands of Army troops manning the air defense systems, the Air Force, the entire joint force. And they are focused, they're dedicated, and they are absolutely doing their job. So let's not ever forget that regardless of the politics, regardless of anything else, on the ground there are young American men and women who are doing what they're told.
Colonel Warren, good to have you with us as always. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Well, here in the U.S., President Trump and top members of his administration are now defending the decision to strike Iran. But opposition is building on Capitol Hill as more classified briefings are expected today. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has the latest here for us from home. Gabe, good morning.
Savannah, good morning. The president and his team are now focused on settling this war. And overnight, the president sending a letter to Congress saying it's not possible at this time to know the full scope and duration of military operations that may be necessary. But Democrats now are pushing back. As the war in Iran escalates, President Trump says the U.S. is ahead of schedule.
We projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that.
The administration said over the weekend that Iran was threatening U.S. forces. Now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio explaining it this way.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces.
Saying the U.S. had to move fast to avoid higher casualties.
The imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. We went proactively in a defensive way.
Democrats aren't buying it.
But if we equate a threat to Israel as the equivalent of an imminent threat to the United States, then we are in uncharted territory.
Overnight, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking on Fox News.
You're not going to have an endless war. This terror regime in Iran is the weakest point that it's been here.
Echoing Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who earlier insisted the war wouldn't be forever.
This is not Iraq. This is not endless.
But there has been mixed messaging.
The objective was not regime change. The objective was to take out those missiles.
On Saturday, the president said this to the Iranian people, suggesting regime change.
When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take.
Now he's stressing 4 objectives for the U.S. mission: destroying Iran's missile capabilities, annihilating their navy, preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, and ensuring they can no longer fund proxy terror groups outside the country.
This was our last best chance to strike.
Now, one question for a lot of people is whether this conflict could involve American troops on the ground. Yesterday, the president and the defense secretary would not rule out boots on the ground, but President Trump is focusing on the military airstrikes for now. saying he wants to hit Iran where it hurts. Joan Savannah.
Gabe, also from a diplomatic standpoint, is the U.S. talking at all with Iran?
Well, at this point, Secretary of State Marco Rubio says no, that there can sometimes be people from inside a government that reach out to the U.S., but at this point, the U.S. isn't sure if they're authorized to speak on behalf of the Iranian regime, which right now is struggling to hold on to power. So at this point, no. The Secretary says that there are no diplomatic talks underway with Iran, but expect a lot more questions today, Savannah, as Secretary Rubio and other top administration officials go once again to Capitol Hill. Yesterday, they briefed a gang of 8 with top congressional leadership. Today, they're expected to brief in a classified setting members of the House and Senate later on this afternoon.
Gabe, speaking of questions, we know the president is yet to hold a news conference. He gave those comments before the Medal of Honor ceremony yesterday, but didn't take questions from the press. Do we know if we expect to hear from the president at some point today?
Well, he is set to meet the German chancellor today at the White House. Possible that he could take questions from reporters there, but you bring up a good point, Joe. The president has broken precedent here. He has not delivered a formal Oval Office address or even a formal news conference taking questions from reporters. You have those social media videos that were posted over the weekend that were pre-taped, edited, so that the president could put it out on his timeline by his administration. But so far, no formal press conference. What he has done, interestingly enough, though, he has taken a series of phone calls from media outlets, including NBC News, and responded very briefly to some questions over the phone. But we do expect to see the president later on today as he meets the German chancellor. Remains to be seen whether he'll take any questions, but we'll certainly be asking Joan Savannah.
All right, Gabe, thank you very much. Well, some wet winter weather is headed for the Northeast today. Let's get a look at that with your Morning News Now weather.
Angie Lastman's here, but there's good news. Wet is good, right?
Exactly. In some spots, we're not dealing with snow, guys, so that's an improvement for folks that are just downright sick of the winter. We unfortunately do have some freezing rain in other locations and some snowflakes flying for some folks this morning as well. So moral of the story is you're going to want to add a little extra time for that morning commute, and you'll want to have the umbrella handy if you live especially closer to the coast across the Northeast. We've got winter alerts up for more than 30 million people at this hour. It extends all the way up into parts of New England and down across parts of the Appalachians. We're going to see Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York, all of those locations along the I-95 corridor see some wet weather through the day today. As Joe mentioned, it's mostly in the form of rain, but again, some freezing rain out there as well. So some slick travel not out of the question, especially for interior areas of the Northeast. The rain and melting snow, though, will be something you'll notice if you live anywhere from Boston to Philadelphia for the better part of today. When it's all said and done, at least through tonight, maybe up to 1/10 of an inch of some ice accumulations on the roadways, especially in those higher elevations. That's where you'll see the higher amounts. And the farther north you go is where you'll see the higher amounts of snow. Again, places like Boston maybe picking up an inch, but stretching farther south, New York City not expecting any accumulating snowfall through the day today. So there's the positive of it all. Then we turn our attention to parts of the central United States, where tomorrow we're going to ramp up those chances for severe weather, as well as some rain showers across parts of the Midwest. When it comes to the severe weather, Dallas, you're right in the center of that slight risk, and we've got all the threats on the table. So wind gusts, damaging hail, and a tornado or two will be possible. As we get into Thursday, looking ahead to the late part of your work week, all that rain, it focuses on the Great Lakes and the Northeast. Notice we don't have a whole lot of wintry precip in there. So that's, again, the good news that we're focusing on, but we will see the severe risk again for parts of Texas and Oklahoma. So just heads up there. Wind, hail, a brief tornado or two will be possible for Thursday as well. So we're getting to that kind of season where, of course, the spring storms are going to be something that we talk about a whole lot. Meanwhile, the next couple of days, we got a whole lot of potential record highs. Look at all those on the map. It's not just chilly temperatures for folks in the Northeast. We've instead got 80s, high 80s at that for some locations, upper 70s, guys. Lexington even into those upper 70s Friday and Saturday. So milder conditions, more spring-like conditions on the way. They're already in place for many, but don't worry, Joe. It's coming for the Northeast.
I feel like the snow is going to melt. I feel like the snow is not going to survive that.
You're right.
No, the nasty snow mountains are really.
I can't wait.
Yeah,
the snow is now gray here in New York, by the way.
They're black in some cases.
Thanks, Angie.
Thank you. More to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including a full rundown of the key Senate primaries on tap for today on the road to the 2026 midterm elections.
First, after the break, a solemn milestone marked by the family of Nancy Guthrie. Their heartbreaking message to Mom, and where the investigation into her disappearance stands 1 month later. That is next.
We are back with the search for Nancy Guthrie. Today marks 31 days since the mother of Today co-anchor Savannah Guthrie was reported missing. Yesterday, Savannah and her family returned to her mother's home, placing flowers and a handwritten card at the growing memorial outside. We're also hearing new details from the sheriff about where the investigation stands now 1 month in. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz joins us with the latest from Tucson, as she has throughout this. Liz, good morning.
Hi, Savannah. Good morning to you. The sheriff says as they enter this next phase of the investigation, he has a dedicated team of detectives from his homicide unit working with the FBI on the search for Nancy. The sheriff says he is still very much operating under the belief that Nancy is alive, and says investigators have thousands of tips they're still combing through.
An emotional moment outside Nancy Guthrie's home Monday. Savannah, Annie, and her husband Tommaso visiting that growing memorial, seen in this video laying yellow flowers and a card with this handwritten message. Though we are surrounded by so much darkness and uncertainty, our love burns bright. We love you, Mommy. We miss you so much. Savannah later sharing this image on Instagram, saying, "We feel the love and prayers from our neighbors, from the Tucson community, and from around the country." Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos tells us he's also not giving up hope.
So, Sheriff, it's been 30 days since Nancy Guthrie went missing. Are investigators any closer to finding the suspect or suspects?
I think the investigators are definitely closer. We got a lot of intel, a lot of leads, but now it's time to just go to work.
We also asked about that new Ring camera video obtained by Fox News Digital showing a car 2.5 miles away.
Is this really something we should be looking at?
Look, what I would tell you is this. We're aware of it, and we're looking into it, just like any other piece of evidence.
Have you been able to identify the car that drove past at 2:36 a.m.?
No.
No. But you are looking to identify it?
We're looking at that vehicle as well as hundreds of thousands of other vehicles that were out driving that time of day.
Nano says they still haven't identified the other clothes the suspect was wearing, and told us this about the backpack.
We've now learned that maybe it wasn't purchased out of Walmart. That backpack is new, is exclusive to Walmart. But who's to say I didn't buy it and put it on eBay? That's what we're looking at.
With so many questions, he told us there is a lot they're just not sharing.
There's so much that everybody wants to know, right? But I would be very neglectful, irresponsible as a police law enforcement leader to share that with everybody. We have information on this case that we think is going to hopefully lead us to solving this case. But it takes time.
And you'll get there?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we also asked him about that unknown mixed DNA found at the home. He said they're still having some challenges processing that DNA, and he suggested the mixture may be from several people, not just from 2 people, which we know from experts can make it really hard to extract an individual DNA profile from. He says they have put some DNA into the FBI's national databank, CODIS, no hits yet. But despite all this, he says he does still believe that that unknown DNA could be the suspects, and he still very much sees DNA as a viable lead for them. He says it's just going to take some time. Savannah.
All right, Liz, thank you very much.
The road to the midterms officially begins today with key Senate primaries underway in Texas, Arkansas, and North Carolina.
Yeah, voters are deciding which candidates will advance to November's general election, and early results could offer a first read on the political mood of the country in the second year of President Trump's second term. And out of all the hotly contested races, it is the high-stakes contest in Texas that is drawing the most national attention.
Here to break it all down, NBC News political reporter Megan Leibowitz. Megan, good morning. So we'll start in Texas, easily the biggest races on the map. Let's go with the Republicans first. What are you watching for tonight? What does President Trump have to say about this primary?
Yeah, so let's set the scene here. Incumbent Senator John Cornyn is in one of the toughest political battles of his career. That's because he's facing two major primary challenges from Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and Republican Congressman Wesley Hunt. Now, both Paxton and Hunt are trying to paint Cornyn as someone who historically has not been sufficiently aligned with President Trump or the MAGA movement. Now, in contrast, Cornyn's backers are criticizing Paxton, pointing to his impeachment in 2023 that was related to bribery and corruption allegations. Now, Hunt is trying to position himself as someone who can sort of be the bridge to the next generation of MAGA candidates, but he's also facing criticism from his opponents for the votes that he's missed in Congress. So how does President Trump factor into all of this? Well, the president actually has not made an endorsement here. He has actually said recently that he supports all three candidates. Now, because there are three candidates, there's also a solid chance that no one actually wins this Senate primary outright. And if that happens, then the top two candidates are ultimately going to advance to the runoff election at the end of May, guys.
Megan, across the aisle, let's talk Democrats. There are two main Democrats vying to flip the seat. Tell us about them and the dynamics in place here.
Yes, so Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is going to be facing off against State Representative James Tallarico. Now, one of the big dynamics here to watch are questions about how Democrats can best get out the vote. So Representative Crockett has tried to position herself as someone who can motivate the base, excite the base, and turn out those voters who are Democrats and who, perhaps haven't really turned out to vote in some of these previous elections. Now, Tallarico, meanwhile, has tried to position himself as someone who can appeal to people across the political spectrum, not just Democrats, but also independents and some Republicans as well who are disillusioned with the president, guys.
Another state we're really watching closely is North Carolina. That's because the Republican Senator Tom Tillis is stepping aside, so this is an open seat, a potential battleground. Republicans want to hold it. Democrats know they can win a statewide race in North Carolina. So talk about where it stands and why it's so important for both parties.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the top races to watch this fall. So in terms of the primary that's happening today, so the most prominent name on the Republican side is Michael Whatley. He's the former chairman of the Republican National Committee, and he also got the endorsement from President Trump. Now, on the Democratic side, the most prominent name is former Governor Roy Cooper. Now, this primary is going to finalize the candidates who are ultimately going to face off. And again, this is going to be one of the most hotly contested Senate races to watch this fall. Democrats have had their eye on this race as a potential seat that Democrats hope that they can flip. It's also going to be one of the handful of races to watch across the map that's sort of going to give an indication as to whether Democrats actually have a chance at flipping the Senate blue. Now, you'll remember in 2024, North Carolina was a major battleground state that got a lot of attention. So President Trump had ultimately won that state by just over 50% of the vote. You can see on the screen, Kamala Harris won a bit over 47% of the vote. So still a fairly close race in 2024. And again, it's going to just be a major battleground state to watch this fall, guys.
All right, Megan Leibowitz, thank you so much. And you can catch our full coverage of tonight's primaries in Arkansas, North Carolina, and Texas starting at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on NBC News Now.
Let's turn now to a major antitrust trial that could hit your wallet. The Justice Department's case against Live Nation is now underway, accusing the company of monopolizing the ticket industry after its merger with Ticketmaster. Well, the government says the company now controls about 80% of concert ticketing, driving up fees and prices. Well, if the DOJ wins their case, it could mean prices for fans to sing about.
Why is one ticket starting to cost $1,000 before tax?
It's a sentiment concert goers know all too well.
I'm at the point where concerts are not seeing me until these prices get lower.
Ticket prices are soaring, and so is frustration. But a new trial underway could transform the ticketing industry, with the Department of Justice arguing that Live Nation, the owner of Ticketmaster, operates a monopoly in direct violation of antitrust laws. At issue, the company's control of venues, promotion, and ticketing. Last year, Live Nation hosted close to 55,000 events globally and sold more than 646 million tickets, and is set to host some of this year's hottest acts, including Harry Styles.
and Lady Gaga. But some fans are already finding it difficult to obtain and afford tickets.
Oh my God, tickets to see Lady Gaga in New York is a total bloodbath for the Mayhem Ball.
A struggle many will remember from Ticketmaster's mishandling of the 2022 Taylor Swift Eras Tour ticket sale.
They're going for resale and stuff up for like $8,000.
With fans upset by price tags in the thousands and a difficult process that shut many out. At the time, Swift herself describing what unfolded as excruciating. And more artists are coming forward to advocate for change. Kid Rock, a potential witness in this trial, has been a vocal critic.
I believe music fans and artists have been getting screwed for far too long by the ticketing system.
Now, the merger between Live Nation and Ticketmaster lies in a jury's hands.
I think the government is going to probably try to pursue a breakup, either between the Live Nation arm and Ticketmaster or within Live Nation.
What could this ultimately mean for the consumer, for the concert goer?
The hope would be that you would have more options, lower prices, a better ticketing experience.
Now, even if the DOJ were to win this case, it would likely take quite a while for the consumer to see any real difference in the ticketing landscape. For its part, Live Nation tells us that 75% of all U.S. concert tickets are already priced under $100, and they say they are committed to consumer-focused reforms and giving artists meaningful control over how their tickets are sold. Now, the trial is expected to last about 6 weeks. Joe, that's, of course, if they don't settle. Another thing that Live Nation really points to is they put a lot of blame on the scalpers. They say they're the ones that drive up that secondary price market.
But then they're also involved in the secondary market as well, which some people are critical of that, saying, well, you're also profiting off of that.
Not to mention, as you heard in there, that no matter if you're buying first-hand, second-hand, the fees that you see slapped on at the end.
I literally still go actually to the box office in places
you do, and I love
as
that.
much as humanly possible just to save on the fees. Saves money.
It's the beauty of living in New York City.
There you go. Exactly. All right. Let's get some more money news now. Kalshi, that big betting platform, teaming up with the Associated Press ahead of this year's midterms.
NBC News business and economy reporter Emily Lorsch has our Money Minute. Hey, Emily, good morning.
Hey, guys, good morning. So this deal involves the AP providing Kalshi with its elections data. So that's everything from live vote tallies to race calls and even what time the polls close. This comes as Americans are increasingly using platforms like Kalshi to bet on potential outcomes for events, including elections. And Apple's rolling out a new wave of devices. The tech giant has introduced the iPhone 17e, the latest take on its lower-end phone, and also a faster version of the iPad Air. The 17e and new iPad are available for pre-order starting tomorrow, with prices starting at $599. And these are expected to be just the first of several launches, including new iPhones and a new MacBook this year. Meanwhile, Starbucks is embracing spring with a colorful new lineup and more ways for customers to personalize their drinks. The new spring menu that rolls out today includes a toasted coconut cream cold brew, toasted coconut latte, and iced ube coconut macchiato. And both lavender and matcha options return for the season too. Now, guys, I think you know me well enough by now to know that if I'm going to tease some potentially delicious drinks, that is the ube macchiato. This has both lavender and matcha in it, and this is the iced coconut cold brew, and this also has toasted coconut in it, and it's a latte.
Wow.
So a little bit of spring here. You guys are also dressed pretty spring today too.
I'll try a sip here, although I'm just a guy who likes black iced coffee. So all the colors and everything.
Compared to the others, that is a nice option.
I get to the coffee through the foam.
Me either. I'll go for the hot one.
A lot of foam there.
Hold outside. Interesting.
Exactly.
Taking a risk with the ice flavor.
Well, thank you. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Happy spring.
All right. Coming up, we do have more coming out of the Middle East, including the global shockwaves of war.
Yeah, after the break, how it could all impact wallets thousands of miles away right here in America. We have a closer look next.
We're back with our top story. The U.S. and Israel are stepping up their attacks on Iran this morning, pounding the capital of Tehran and several other cities. Iran's Red Crescent, that it's equivalent to the Red Cross, says the number of people killed has now risen to 787. Iran continues to strike back. Saudi Arabia says Iran was behind a drone attack that hit the U.S. embassy in Riyadh. The U.S. has now shut down that embassy and ordered some people to leave other embassies in the region. All this as Israel expands its attacks on on Lebanon. The IDF says that it's seizing territory in a new ground offensive aimed at fighting Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed militant group there. And as Americans in the Middle East attempt to flock to safety, many airspaces are closing, which means getting out can be a challenge. NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons is in Dubai with more.
This morning, Israel and the U.S. increasing attacks on Iranian targets. The death toll now at least 6 U.S. service members, as President Trump warns the war may last longer.
We projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that.
Overnight, the State Department issuing its strongest warning yet, urging U.S. nationals to depart now. The alert stretching to countries in the Middle East, affecting thousands of American government workers. As Iran continues counterattacks on major cities in the region with thousands of missiles and drones.
They're attacking airports, they're attacking hotels, they're hitting not just military bases, they're attacking our embassies directly.
Tensions spiraling in Saudi Arabia, home to 80,000 Americans. The U.S. embassy in Riyadh hit by 2 Iranian drones overnight, sparking a fire. And the strikes also forcing multiple flights to turn back. In the UAE, where 50,000 Americans live, flight tracking data showing planes holding outside its airspace after missiles were launched in the middle of the night. With aviation disrupted, airports targeted, and thousands of flights cancelled, anxiety is growing for Americans stranded across a region that serves as a critical hub for global air travel.
I'm really nervous. My adrenaline is through the roof.
I'm in a parking shelter.
Still a lot of uncertainty as to when we're going to get out. I've had our plane rebooked multiple times, canceled several times.
And more nerves for the American civilians living here, like Kiran Ali from New York, founder of American Women of Dubai.
How often are those booms happening?
So it seemed to be in phases.
That's an interception.
Then after a minute, you heard the boom.
That's drone or missile being intercepted?
Yeah.
This family of 4 now facing growing uncertainty and what could be a prolonged, spiraling conflict.
Yeah. What are you telling the kids?
There's rockets that are going out to help other people that are far away. So by the time you hear the boom sound, it's already long gone and it can't hurt you.
All right. Our thanks to Keir Simmons for that report. Well, as Israel strikes Iran and expands its operation in Lebanon, the country is preparing for a rising threat of attacks. NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley has been getting an inside look at Israel's emergency medical service this morning. Matt, good morning. Tell us where you are.
So I'm outside Tel Aviv right now in an area called Ramla, and this is the main nerve center, one of 2 in Israel for Israel's ambulance service. It's called Magen David Adom, and these are the people who show up at all of the blast sites that we've been seeing over the past 2 days and last year, and really for any emergency in this country. And you can see, if you look around, it does look a lot like an ordinary dispatch center that you'd find in the U.S., except there are a few crucial differences. We're about 100 feet underground right now. These doors are basically impervious to any huge blast. And also, in a normal dispatch center, you wouldn't have ventilators that could basically protect everybody in here from a chemical attack. So this is a very, very secure place, and it's run with top-level technology. This whole building was completed in just the past year after October 7th attack. So really, folks here, they don't even have to pick up the phone because this is all run by computers, integrated with the way in which they're able to monitor incoming missiles. So they can determine, based on the trajectory of the missile, as it's incoming, where they're going to be sending rescue workers and ambulances. All of it done automatically and in real time. It's an extraordinary thing to watch, and it just goes to explain why there have been relatively so few casualties here in Israel compared to the amount of firepower that the Iranians have been throwing at this country.
All right, Matt, thank you.
The war with Iran is sending oil prices skyrocketing this morning, up to their highest in more than a year.
Yeah, that upward pressure coming from Iran, saying it has closed that critical Strait of Hormuz, which sees 20% of the world's oil pass through it.
NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans is here with us to talk about all this. We'll get to gas prices in a moment, but just in general, the global economy. What do we expect to see happening?
Well, look, the real fear is this is some sort of a global shock. Last time we saw something like this was the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which sent oil and gas prices sky high and really rippled through the global economy, sending inflation higher as well. You know, that was a big reason why so many countries around the world paid so much more for inflation. So that is one of the big concerns here when you look at the potential disruption of oil supplies and then just the global shock overall of a prolonged conflict in this region if that were to happen.
What does this mean then directly for gas prices, but also inflation more broadly?
So for gas prices overnight from AAA, we saw gas prices pop 10 cents overnight. It's rare, very rare to see a one-day move in gas prices like this. So you've got gas prices measured by AAA higher than a week ago. They were $2.95 a week ago. They were $2.88 a gallon a month ago. And now you're talking about $3.10. And the folks over at Gas Buddy are predicting you could see $3.20 a gallon up to by the end of this week. So this is percolating literally and figuratively here. There's concerns about potential disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. We know that the Iranian state media has said that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard will set on fire any ships that are trying to go through there. They carry 20% of the world's oil. So you've got a parking lot on both sides of the Strait of Hormuz. You've also got these Iranian counterattacks inside both Qatar and Saudi Arabia. So you have a liquefied natural gas and an oil refinery both offline here. Symbolic, psychological, I think, saying, hey, wait, if we're talking about attacking infrastructure in this oil-rich region, that's a problem for our oil prices, too.
Let's talk about what we're seeing on Wall Street. Yesterday, things started to drop, then rebounded, but futures today, it looks like it could get bad. How bad could it get? Yeah, you've got really negative signals this morning in the stock market. This is what investors call, or market professionals call, risk off. Just getting out of anything that looks risky and really sort of trying to play it safe, and that means selling stocks. So the indications are that there will be a sharply lower open. But you're right, Joe, to point out that yesterday the Dow was down 500 points or so and then found its footing and closed kind of mixed by the end of the day. I have learned a long time ago never to predict in a crisis what's going to happen in the stock market, but at least the early indications are that this is a reason investors want to run for the hills here and find some safety with their money as they look to figure out what's going to happen next, how long this happens, what is the after plan from the White House. We know that Secretary of State Marco Rubio yesterday in a stakeout told reporters that there was a plan. The administration had understood that higher energy prices could be a factor of its attacks in Iran, and that there would be some sort of program they would announce to address gas prices for American citizens. We'll see what that is and when we hear about it. All right, Christine Romans, good to have you with us.
Well, coming up, continuing coverage of this latest military escalation in the Middle East.
When we come back, how Israel managed to topple Iran's longtime Ayatollah on day one of this military escalation. That is next. We're back with more on our top story, the war in Iran, and we want to take a closer look at how the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, was killed in U.S. and Israeli strikes on the first day of the conflict. He ruled Iran for decades, bringing Iran into confrontation with the U.S. over its nuclear program and cracked down on protests earlier this year. For more on all this, let's bring in NBC News intelligence reporter Dan DeLuce. Dan, good to have you with us. I mean, these images were released of the supreme leader's compound after the U.S. and Israel launched that major attack over the weekend. What are we learning about how forces knew where to find him?
Joe, the U.S. and Israeli intelligence agencies have been trying to track him now for months, and there was a huge effort to try to monitor him, figure out where he was, when he was, his movements, any routines. And of course, that kind of technology and the ability to track people has improved drastically, right? There are so many sensors out there now and cameras and hacking tools that they were apparently able to know that he was going to be at a meeting on Saturday morning and at the beginning of the working week in Iran. And so they moved up the time of the air attack instead of doing it at nighttime so they could try to target him and other senior leaders he was meeting with. And of course, we now know that they succeeded. Now, they're not giving us a lot of details, but that's what sources have told us, that the Israelis, of course, typically have had more insight into Iran and Iran's regime than the U.S. intelligence agencies. But of course, the U.S. also has very powerful tools to eavesdrop and satellite imagery and so forth.
We know Iranian state media announced Khamenei's death early Sunday, but that was hours after President Trump had shared the news. Do we know how the U.S. was able to confirm that he died?
They're not saying, Joe, but again, the U.S. has the ability not only to track the movement of people, often through maybe people near that person. In other words, maybe drivers or bodyguards or assistants, and they're maybe not as careful in their security, and they're able to track them through their phones. Also, of course, we have eavesdropping abilities. So it may be that we simply heard Iranian officials discussing, the fact that he was dead and there would have to be arrangements and funeral arrangements. We don't know. But it was interesting that the Iranian government did finally confirm it publicly hours after the U.S. said so.
Dan, the supreme leader ruled Iran for decades. Around the world, we know many mourned his death. Others celebrated his death. This is a tough question, but what do you think is next for Iran? What is it you're watching?
This is a huge question. I think, first of all, it's interesting to see that the government is still functioning. They're obviously in a crisis, but you do see emergency services operating. You do see rubble being cleaned up. It is functioning at some level. Now, the other thing is that this regime was not dependent on one person. This was not a one-man type of rule. It is a collective. It's authoritarian, but there is a fairly significant group of people that runs that country as a collective, and they say they are now making plans to choose a new leader. And of course, the most powerful group there, Joe, are the Revolutionary Guard Corps. That's really the backbone of that regime, and they're getting bombed continually, but they are still there, and they have very vested interests. So I think it's a long way from some kind of democratic transition right now. There's no armed opposition on the ground at this time.
All right, Dan DeLuce, good to have you with us. Thank you so much. Coming up, we're going to turn the page towards something a little brighter on this Tuesday. It is Read Across America Week, and after the break, we're going to introduce you to the prolific writer who has been filling the shoes of the late, great Dr. Seuss for decades. But how did Tish Rabi become the who of who's? Here she is. We're going to ask her. Stay with us up next. We are back with a book lover's dream. It is Read Across America Week, a time devoted to celebrating iconic authors and fan favorite stories. It also marks a great time to encourage more kids to read. The event kicked off yesterday with the birthday of beloved children's author Dr. Seuss. Of course, he wrote dozens of rhyming books, including some famous classics like The Cat in the Hat and Green Eggs and Ham. Following his death in 1991, another author was asked to step in and help carry on his legacy. Her name is Tish Rabi, and she has now written dozens of books for the Dr. Seuss franchise, not to mention several other stories embraced by kids everywhere. In all, she has written more than 200 books and sold over 11 million copies. Well, now she has not one, but two new books. Perfect timing for Read Across America. Kindness is Caring, Friendship is Sharing is out now. And Central Park, You Can See, Is the Best Place to Be, out March 25th. For our next guest, writing is more than a hobby. So please welcome best-selling children's author, Tish Rabi. How'd I do there?
It was fabulous. It's the whole thing right
rhyming here, all right? We are immersed in a children's book here,
gorgeous.
which is absolutely gorgeous. Credit to our crew for putting all this together. Let's start with a question that I have to imagine you are asked pretty much every single day of your life. How on earth did you become the person who took over the Dr. Seuss franchise? Because let's be clear, that wasn't your intention.
No. I started out to be an opera singer. I never thought I was going to be a children's author. So there you go. That was not the plan. But I was lucky enough to get a job on Sesame Street. And at that time, Sesame Street was looking for books. So I started writing for Sesame Street. And then years later, I wrote a book about a little dinosaur. Morris Aurorus was a brachiosaurus who had the best voice in the dinosaur chorus. He liked to play tennis and swim in the sea, but mostly he liked to eat fresh broccoli. So I submitted it to Dr. Seuss Random House, and the wild news was they did not publish Morris Aurorus, but they wanted to ask me if I would write The Cat in the Hat's Learning Library, a series of books for early readers about science in rhyme. And I said, sure. Why not?
Were you intimidated or scared at that point?
Terrified. And it was funny because the first two they gave me were mammals and birds. So my very first one was, is a camel a mammal? And the answer to that is yes.
Yes, okay.
As it turns out. But they all had to be scientifically correct. They had to rhyme. And then Dr. Seuss had a very specific rhythm. Mm-hmm. You know, on the 15th of May in the jungle of Newell Horton, the elephant sat in the pool. It all had to be in that rhythm. So it was super creatively challenging, but so fun.
Part of the reason that they were interested in you was when they read your book about the dinosaur, did they see elements of that rhythm in there? Yeah.
And my mother read me The Cat in the Hat like every day of my life when it came out.
So it was like
I already had the rhythm going, right? Morris, Auroras, Draki, Osaurus, you know. So that was really helpful.
I have to imagine Dr. Seuss meant so much to you in your childhood. You know how much it means to everyone. What does it mean to you to be part of the legacy that has brought so much joy to so many generations?
Well, it is an honor, and I will say that everyone who works on the Cat in the Hat's Learning Library was so careful. The science was perfect. We researched everything. When Pluto got demoted, we had to rewrite the space book. You know, I mean, we took it really, really seriously. And I like to think he would have been happy about the result.
I have no doubt. You mentioned you worked for Sesame Street. You were hired by Jim Henson early on in the days of Sesame Street.
That is correct.
That must have been unreal.
Well, it was wild. And he hired me to sing with the Muppets. So I was a singer for the show, the series, and the specials. And my favorite was, one of my first was, I love trash, anything dirty and dingy and dusty, with Oscar.
Yes.
So this is my big, foray into show business.
And Oscar has that gritty voice. So.
Yeah, he needed all the help he could get, I think, at that point.
All right, let's talk about your new projects. You have two new books out. Let's grab them here. Kindness is Caring, Friendship is Sharing is one of them. But Central Park, you can see, is the best place to be. This is a book for kids about Central Park. What should we know about this?
Well, let me tell you about that one first then. Yes, I worked with the Central Park Conservancy to take 843 acres and put them into 24 rhyming pages.
There's a lot to talk about.
It was a lot of work. No. And this is really fun because it's a storybook in rhyme for kids who love the park. And it really does show young families, where are the places to take your kids. They're all in here.
Yeah.
And that comes out in March. And all my books have songs because, of course, you can't stop me singing anyway.
Yes.
So this one is Central Park is here for you. There's lots to see and lots to do. And it ends with spend the day. It's fun and pretty in the heart of New York City.
I like that.
See, you just stay with me. You will sing with me all the time. So I'm very, very excited about this one.
We have 30 seconds left, but talk about Kindness is Caring.
Kindness is Caring. Kindness is Caring, Friendship is Sharing. This is a book I wrote with Trumbull, Connecticut Rotary Club.
Okay.
Rotary is an international organization that cares about making the world a gentler place.
We all could use that.
We could all use that at any time. So beautiful artwork by an African artist. And it really, again, has a beautiful message, and it really says we've got to be kinder and gentler. We all share one world that is spinning in space, and together we can make it a wonderful place.
Love that.
Is the end of this one. So,
Tish Robbie, thank you so much for joining us.
So much. So much fun.
All right, one of those books out now. The Central Park book, again, will be available on her website March 25th. That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now, but stay with us. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.